I want to break down DNA because a lot of people are not realizing or doing the research or either don't really care where we get our characteristics from, our personality, why we do some of the things we do or think the way we think, and why we adopt tradition and what is tradition. A lot of this stuff falls under your DNA, which is, your chromosomes in your haplogroup. Now, what is a haplogroup? A haplogroup is your chromosomes. Your chromosomes could either be are part of a region of where you came from, where a group of people since the beginning of time have lived or actually originally came from. With these original people in this haplogroup come in their DNA. And your DNA and your chromosomes basically are characteristic of in the personality of who you are as a group of people. So that's why we always hear in the Bible about conversion, renewing of the mind, the clearing of the conscience, because it's sort of like you're giving away your characteristics and who you are. You're giving away that DNA and that haplogroup to come over to this DNA characteristics and haplogroup and are renewed and a part of that. So when you see people and they have a certain DNA or that comes in with a characteristic trait. So if you're somebody that's ever had a deja vu or have done something and you or your parents or somebody, oh my gosh, when we were young, I couldn't believe it. You just like your grandfather, you or your grandmother, and they used to do this. That's because it's a characteristic trait that's imprinted in you. We hear God speak of it when he said, I shall imprint it inside of your mind and inside of your soul, as a reminder. God speaks this. Now, when he says that imprint on them characteristics, that haplogroup, that DNA, is sort of like a microchip. A microchip is something that no matter what you imprint on it, it's always going to remember. It's always going to carry that trait. So your DNA technically carries a lot of that. So once you actually learn who you are, which we hear Yeshua, aka Jesus, speak of, he tells you this. He says, listen, once you find out who you are, no matter who you are, and then you believe, and have a renewing of your mind, and third, then you come into a full understanding. So we have 3 days ago, there were 3 prisoners, okay, that broke out of prison. One was Arabic, one was Asian, and one was Caucasian. Now they're labeling it the Hannibal, suspects that broke out of prison, all this other stuff. And they told about how the guy that was Arabic, how he would cut up his victims, do this and third, and eat them, and everything else, and he was really dangerous. And this is going on. I think today's date is January the 28th. So it happened 3 days ago, 2016. With that being said, if you look at his past and his characteristic and genes, he comes from what he is. They came from nomads, and that's what they did. So even 3,000 or 4,000 years ago, he was of a people that technically actually really did this. You know what I'm saying? And that trait is in him. And so we find that your characteristics and your personality is a part of your DNA. If you can deny who you are and you cross over to believing in Christ and Yeshua and on yours, it's not just saying I just believe. It's technically being a part of these characteristics, chromosomes, DNA of these people and of God and everything that they do. You're giving away that trait and everything that you were a part of. So if you came from Celtics and they did all of the praying with the hoods and they believed in all these other little mysticisms, you're giving away that trait and characteristics of your ancestry past. That is what a DNA and the chromosome really is. Even though it traces who you are, it's a fingerprint and an imprint of who you are. And when it runs deeper, a group of people that actually believe and did things in a certain way. So, which is like, and it's really funny because a lot of people have deja vu. So go, dang, I sort of been here. That's because your chromosomes and your DNA are an imprint of your past, your present, and are going to be always an imprint for your future. So we need to really look at who we are inside and renew our minds and characteristics and become a part of that DNA and that chromosome and that haplogroup of Jacob's seed because they believed and did everything in the right way. This is why it's so important that when we look at the biometrics and how they're trying to tie in so much with everybody and because they have a full understanding that with technology and the computer and biometric, everybody has their own imprint, and then on a larger scale, that imprint is also part of a group of other imprints. All right, when you really break it down, and every imprint has its own characteristics, so it's easier to use somebody's imprint in their DNA because it's just like a microchip. So you have to understand that you're giving up what you are and what you came from when you do believe, and it's a bigger picture. You can't hold on to some of your traditions and values if they're of paganism just because you may say, oh gosh, I'm Irish or I'm Polish or I'm Italian, so I'm going to hold on to this stuff. And with this stuff might come a heritage of paganism. No, you can't do that no more. And a lot of people don't understand that the English language is the most complex language in the world because it takes everybody else's language and it throws 10,000 definitions behind one word. Seriously. So you have to, when we speak English and speak words, we actually really need to go do the definition of these words because those words carry characteristics also, that with the English language and that have to do with why we act the way we act and our characteristics, which are once again tied in with the DNA and our chromosomes and haplogroup. So haplogroup is a group of people that come from a region, whether if you're R1 from the southern regions up there in the mountains by northern Europe and all that stuff, or a J that's mixed up between some in Africa and some in Europe, because then you got the Caucasian Jays that came out of these Jays that were Hamites and all this other stuff. We have to get a clear understanding of how everything works, and there are a group of people that tie in, and when you look at those group of people that tie in, they sort of carry the same characteristic traits in belief or with the way they move, or you might have two characteristic people that eat the same food, but understand who you are, and then you have to give up that trait and all the paganism and stuff that came along with it and become a part of this haplogroup DNA and trait, because our DNA and everything that they're doing, if you really pay attention now, because they don't fingerprint you anymore, they eye retina scan you. They're not trying to get you to swipe your credit card, they're trying to biometric you. So because that DNA, that chromosome is a trait of who you are, and it carries characteristic in the personality. Some of us give up our characteristic of personality and adopt other people's cultures, which is a part of their trait and characteristic, becoming one with them. I spent a lot of time with Sicilians and Italians. I didn't know what I know today, and I became part of them. And I love Italians. I love the food, I love the culture, but I became a part of their characteristics and traits because I gave and denied my characteristics and traits, becoming one with them. So it works in all ways. There's not no ifs, ands, and buts. This is who you are, and it's your free will to either accept the one true God and characteristics and traits of these people, or stay on that path of who you are, because Satan will trip you up and go, oh gosh, this is your heritage, this is who you are, and you're gonna look really foolish. Hey, you're this or you're that. This and a lot of paganism comes behind it. By you holding on, you stay in a lukewarm position, and in the end, Satan wins your soul. So don't be deceived and tricked up. Understand the characteristics and traits and even your heritage and culture, and if something comes along with that, that's not right. And a lot of those who are confused and don't know the heritage and culture and have forgotten, because that curse be on a lot of God's people that happened to, or that are waking up right now. You need to start learning about your characteristics and traits, because some people are so lost not knowing actually their lineage or background that they have adopted other characteristics, personality, and traits from all ends because they're confused and lost, and that's what happens. So adopt the right characteristics and traits if you do believe, because there's a whole big thing that comes along with it. You can't just believe; you have to actually adopt what them characteristics and traits in that DNA and that haplogroup was. So that's what your character. That's where you get your personality, the deja vu's, and everything else like that, because it's an imprint of where your ancestry's done and all this other stuff. This is why you hear your parents or grandparents always say, wow, you remind me of this, that, we used to do that. Wow, you did it just like that. Because that's the characteristic and the imprint of your DNA of who you are as your family in the past and all this other stuff.